Guys, so then I had this massive epiphany about how slight and miserable my sister is. I've got the perfect idea. What kind of idea? Well, just watch closely. The most beautiful white dress, like one she would wear in a carriage on the way to get married, Jessica suggested with a wave of her hand that might as well have been for Joe. As she opened it, while still clutching onto my hand, she glanced around at the guests and said proudly, "Does anyone fancy taking my sister off our hands?" Not very well educated and not far off getting along in years, is she? After these words, the sister looked over with a smug, almost maliciously smile. Still, she hadn't fully realized the amount of wrong she was doing. The atmosphere in the room changed quickly with the blunder she had just made. Whispers flittered through the room, and those sitting across from Jessica began to give her frosty glares. But unaware, Jessica tightened her grip on the microphone one more time. "Come on, sister, you need to sell yourself more. There are plenty of handsome doctors here. You really don't understand what you've done, do you?" Huh. In the next moment, an unexpected major incident occurred. My name is Emily Nichols, a plain 29-year-old working adult. I don't have any particularly outstanding features, except for one unusual fact. After graduating from middle school, I pursued a career in law and obtained my attorney's license. I have a sister named Jessica, 2 years my junior. She's charming in appearance and sociable by nature, so she has always been treated specially by our family. I am not particularly noticeable in appearance, just plain, and I fit within the average range in terms of style. Moreover, I am not especially charming, so I was never much cherished by my family or relatives. I hardly felt any affection and was rather treated coldly within our home. I couldn't compete with Jessica's natural charm, and she monopolized our parents' passionate love. On the other hand, all I received were harsh looks. I worked as hard as I could in my studies, earning good grades in the hope of attracting even a little attention from my family. But I could never outshine her. Eventually, tired of striving for my family's love, I decided to take a different path. Giving up on being loved, I poured even more effort into my studies and dedicated myself to studying, promising myself to find my worth. Deepening my knowledge gave me confidence, and my efforts led to visible results. I hoped that the success I achieved through academics would one day lead to a word of praise from my parents. Holding on to this faint hope, I continued to sit at my desk in my study until late at night. Throughout my middle school years, I always maintained the top spot in my class and outpaced the other students in every test. Despite this, not once did I receive words of praise from my parents during those long school years. Instead, I was often met with what felt like reproach for my grades. It's not just about being at the top. You need to get nearly perfect scores in every subject. Yes, even if you score 95% in science, it's not perfect. But this recent exam was really difficult. Excuses again and again. Your insufficient efforts are why you end up with such results. Mother's voice had a sharpness like ice. It's truly disagreeable. Are you intending to flaunt those less than perfect grades? All I could do was apologize. "Yes, I'm sorry," I murmured softly. No matter how much time and effort I invested, my results never matched my parents' idea of perfection. They never acknowledged my efforts. Any score less than 100% was just a reason for reprimand. But more than my parents' coldness, my sister Jessica's seemingly innocent words hurt more. "Oh, sister, you're not getting lectured again, are you?" She entered my private space without permission and smirked at my report card. Good grades and still scolded. That's sad. I get praised for barely passing. Did you come here just to say that? I was worried maybe you were down again, but I didn't expect such a cold reception. Jessica feigned concern with her words. "If you were really worried, you wouldn't speak to me like that," I retorted. "See, that's your problem. You're always like this, so standoffish. That's why Dad and Mom don't show you love. It's because of that." Jessica's gaze was as cold as ice as she looked down on me with unmistakable contempt. For a brief moment, that attitude was palpable even from her departing figure. After she left, the sound of her cheerful laughter with our parents could be heard from the living room. I should have been accustomed to this kind of situation by now, but the sadness that suddenly welled up couldn't be contained, and tears naturally streaked down my cheeks. I had told myself over and over that I didn't need my parents' expectations, that I wouldn't be swayed by Jessica's words. Despite that resolve, my emotions betrayed me, and tears fell freely. In my hand was the report card, now crumpled beyond recognition, wrinkled within my clenched hand. I resolved again to stand on my own, to break free from this suffocating family environment, and I determined that excelling in my studies and enhancing my abilities was essential for that escape. From that moment, I threw myself into my studies with even greater zeal than before. One day, as the autumn breeze swept through the classroom windows, I received an unexpected announcement from my father. "Emily, you will not pursue high school, but will immediately start looking for a job," he stated coldly. I was at a loss for words, unable to mask my confusion. "Why would you say something like that?" I asked with an expressionless face. My father replied, "Further investment in you is unnecessary. If you want to go to high school, pay for it with your own earnings. If that's impossible, then you have no choice but to give up. But I'm still in middle school. Work opportunities are limited for me. How am I supposed to?" My protest fell on deaf ears. "Then you must resign yourself to this. After discussing it with your mother, we've decided to concentrate our finances on Jessica. We can't afford to spend more on you," he declared definitively. "That's not fair." I screamed internally, but my father's decision was unshakable. His abrupt words seemed to drain all the color from the world around me, painting my world in shades of gray. The faces of my mother and sister, who stared at me as I stood frozen, bore smiles that were uncomfortably unhidden in their glee. I understand much more now. For example, there were options to cover high school expenses, such as finding schools that offer tuition waivers or gaining scholarship information. However, back then, without the knowledge to access such information, I was simply devastated by the closure of my path to further education. Since that day, my passion for learning faded rapidly. The praises of my homeroom teacher, who had always admired my grades, rang hollow, and the lack of tension about education at home made my prospects of advancing to higher education even more hopeless. Eventually, I stepped into the next stage of my life, working at a local factory immediately after graduation. At the time, I was not yet of age to live independently and support myself. Therefore, until I reached the age of 18, I continued to work as hard as I could. My salary from the job was primarily contributed to the household, and the meager amount I kept for myself was saved for the future. Those difficult days felt like crawling through an endless tunnel. On my 18th birthday, I finally left that house, leaving a single letter for my family. With my decision in my heart, I walked away from that home that now only existed in my memories. The family's reaction afterward was, ironically, as if I had never existed. Complete silence without a single phone call or letter. Initially, living apart from my family caused me heartache, and the loneliness cast a shadow over my days. However, as time passed, the loneliness gradually eased with the business of work. Since moving out and starting an independent life, the stress I had felt at home disappeared, and I began to experience a mental spaciousness I had never felt before. This newfound peace of mind reignited a new enthusiasm within me. I regained my former passion for academia and decided to start learning anew. As I began to study again after a long hiatus, I started with the basics, reviewing them diligently. The joy of learning filled my heart once more, and before I knew it, I was continuing my studies with ease. After that, I started to delve into high school textbooks and simultaneously began extensive reading. During my reading journey, I became fascinated by books on law, which sparked a profound interest in the legal profession. With my education having ended in junior high, the career of a lawyer seemed distant. Yet I serendipitously learned about the preliminary examination system. This system presented a possibility, even for someone with my educational background, to take the bar exam. With this new information, my dedication to studying intensified. I utilized every possible moment at home and even during short breaks at work. I was committed to memorizing legal terms during lunch and ensuring that my preparation for the bar exam never waned. The workplace was populated with individuals from the generation above me, most of whom were around my parents' age. They saw my earnest efforts and united to support me. At the age of 23, I managed to pass the exam. After passing the exam, I left long-term employment at the factory and secured a position at a top-notch law firm. Following roughly 4 years of training there, I set out on my own to open my law practice. Now I spend my days contentedly serving as a legal consultant for a hospital. Yet sometimes, I ponder, what if I told my parents about becoming a lawyer? I wonder how they would react. Sometimes I harbor the hope that now I could meet the expectations they might have had. Nevertheless, I have not shared anything with them, and somewhere in my heart, I believe I will continue not to reach out to them. However, an unexpected reunion with my family came sooner than anticipated. One evening, after finishing work, I came home to find a message on my smartphone from my younger sister, Jessica, saying she was getting married. Jessica is getting married. I murmured to myself softly. My sister, now 27, was engaged to a doctor, and I received a notification that her wedding was scheduled for next month. They wished for my attendance. Despite the long period of estrangement from Jessica and my parents, the hesitation to meet them was there. But as a family member, I couldn't overlook this significant event and sent a reply to attend. A prompt response from my sister arrived, outlining the exact date and location of the ceremony. Suddenly, the message ended with a note, "Don't forget the wedding gift," which made me smile wryly to myself. Perhaps Jessica, rather than wanting to wholeheartedly welcome me, was expecting a wedding gift. Deciding to use the wedding as an occasion to reunite with the family and then to part ways again, I firmed up this resolution. On the day of Jessica's wedding, I donned a carefully selected blue dress and headed to the venue for the ceremony. After completing the entrance formalities, I took my seat in the area reserved for family, where my father and mother were already seated. "You have some nerves showing up here. You must be doing well for yourself with the meager earnings from the factory," my father said coldly. "Indeed, you're right. Introducing someone like her as family does not do us any credit as parents," my mother added with a tone of disdain. "Jessica shouldn't have invited someone like you," my father continued. I told them exactly that, but they insisted on receiving the celebration money regardless, my mother stated quietly. Despite my presence right before them, they carried on this conversation without any hesitation. This was the reality. I faced a faint hope that sharing my side of the story might bridge the gap between my family and me, but it was swiftly shattered. I felt it crumbling inside. Both my father and mother seemed to completely avoid conversation with me. In the quiet, I glanced around the venue and noticed some familiar faces among the groom's side. Haven't I seen that person somewhere before? I mused to myself, feeling a sense of déjà vu with the person sitting next to them as well. While tracing my uncertain memory, I looked up the groom's name, and my suspicion turned into conviction. The connection I had anticipated became clear. I couldn't entirely hide my faint surprise inside. Such a coincidence, it was almost like a twist of fate, I marveled. However, I decided to keep my emotions in check and spend the day quietly as part of the ceremony. As the program proceeded, the bride and groom made a glamorous entrance, followed by his team of guests who spoke warm words and performed entertaining acts that softened the atmosphere. As time passed, the banquet gradually shifted to dinner and then to photo-taking sessions. Throughout this time, my parents got up without acknowledging my presence and moved towards the front where the bride and groom awaited. Jessica, as if drawn by a magnet, clung close to the bride and groom, showing a happy smile with each photograph taken. Pretending to feel nothing about the scene unfolding before me, I focused silently on the meal in front of me. But unexpectedly, my sister Jessica quietly approached me. She came closer with a smile, but her eyes had a spark of something more than excitement at seeing her sister after so many years. It seemed like she was up to something else. "Big sis, it's been such a long time, hasn't it? Are you happy to spend time together like this?" she asked lightly. I nodded quietly, expressing my genuine thoughts. Yes, the banquet food is really wonderful. With a sarcastic smile, Jessica continued, "You can't get such luxurious food at the factory you work at, can you? You should be grateful for this opportunity." Something inside me felt like it was being torn apart, but I did not show it on my face. However, Jessica's words became sharper, tauntingly piercing me. "Oh dear, did I upset you? I'm sorry, but it's natural for you to be envious, isn't it? Your little sister marrying a doctor and all." The phrase "I'm sorry" came from Jessica's mouth flippantly, as if it were a meaningless ornament. I kept my expression unchanged and quietly waited for my next move. At that moment, Jessica whispered in my ear, "Big sis, because I feel sorry for you, I've come up with a great idea." Despite maintaining my composure, I asked with suspicion, "A great idea? What is it?" Jessica said with satisfaction, "You'll see. Just watch closely." Then, adorned in an elegant wedding dress, Jessica gathered the attention of everyone around as she received a microphone from the staff. Suddenly, she announced loudly to the guests, "Ladies and gentlemen, you may not be aware, but my sister is here. She may not have the highest education or be the youngest, but if there is anyone kind-hearted enough, could you please take her under your wing?" My face turned red. "What are you saying, Jessica?" I exclaimed. Jessica continued even louder. "Although she doesn't earn much and leads a modest life, is there someone here who can brighten my sister's future?" As the gazes of those around focused on me, Jessica seemed to be enjoying my confusion with a smug smile. At that moment, a breathtaking scene unfolded. Jessica's blasphemous attitude escalated, and astonishingly, even our normally gentle parents chimed in with her tune. "Please treat her kindly," they said. This frivolous comment from my parents was the last straw for me. Rage swirled within me. To ridicule a person so much at such a joyous occasion, how far would they go to be satisfied? I couldn't believe it, but now it was time for them to be confronted with reality. As the atmosphere around shifted and the murmuring in the venue gradually increased, Jessica, unaware that she was the center of attention, once again took the microphone, cheerfully calling out, "Emily, look, there are so many doctors gathered here. It's your chance." I maintained silence but conveyed a strong will through my somber gaze. "This is the end for you," I thought. Confused, Jessica could only respond with, "A." I continued more calmly towards her. You'll understand soon just how terrible your actions have been. Just as Jessica tried to make an excuse, the groom suddenly raised his voice to address the venue. Wait, please. Why are you leaving your seats? The venue was riveted by his voice. Looking towards the groom, it was evident that all his colleagues from work were standing up, heading for the exit. Even as the groom tried to stop them, a dignified man who appeared to be the hospital director spoke to the groom with determination. The recent remarks of the bride were so unpleasant that I'm in disbelief. I apologize, but we can no longer stay here. We will take our leave now. In response, the groom hurried to stop the hospital director, offering to take responsibility for her words and actions. Please wait. I admit her words were inappropriate. I'll speak to her directly and ensure she undergoes a serious change in awareness. However, the hospital director pointed out the gravity of the issue and revealed a background that the groom was unaware of. The crux of the problem isn't just that. Do you not know what kind of person her sister is? The groom, though confused, admitted, Eh? No, I only met her sister for the first time today, and all I've heard was that she worked in a factory after graduating from middle school. The hospital director could not hide his irritation at the groom's ignorance. Don't be ridiculous. Her sister is a respected lawyer and also serves as the legal advisor to our hospital. The groom was shocked to learn of this fact, indicating he was unaware that I was the hospital's legal advisor. The lawyer is our hospital's advisor, and not only that, the hospital where my sister's husband-to-be works is actually the hospital I work at. The reason why the groom looked familiar was that I had seen him several times at hospital events. The other guests probably came to the same realization upon seeing me. My sister's inappropriate comments only added fuel to the fire, and that's why the hospital director openly expressed his outrage. Although the groom himself is a member of the hospital's medical staff and has no direct relation to me, to the hospital director and other staff, the legal advisor is of significant importance. The groom's face turned even redder in an instant, and he stepped toward Jessica, raising his tone of voice in reproach. What on earth is this? Because of your carelessness, my reputation is now tarnished. Jessica stumbled over her words for a moment, then defended herself like a bewildered child. It's not like that. I truly had no idea that my sister was in such a prestigious position. The groom, growing more indignant, continued to reproach Jessica for her ignorance. Ignorance is no excuse. How can you speak so lightly and disrespectfully of your own sister? As a human being, your behavior is at the very bottom. You've truly lost sight of what's valuable. Jessica, desperately trying to elicit some understanding, pleaded, Wait a minute, listen. I have a good reason. However, the groom, without leaving room for her explanation, declared decisively, the withdrawal from the marriage itself. I have no interest in hearing your excuses. Our marriage discussion ends here. Shocked by his words, Jessica collapsed on the spot as if her soul had left her, her complexion turning deathly pale. Then, in a fit of anger, the groom disappeared from the wedding hall along with the guests present. As I was about to leave, I heard a desperate cry from my sister behind me. Please help me, Emily. But without being swayed by her cries, I confronted her with a stern tone. Help you, you say? Why should I do such a thing for you? The situation you find yourself in is the result of the seeds you've sown. Attempting to get a laugh with a joke that mocks others, and then playing the victim when it fails is a pathetic sight that I cannot accept. Jessica, fraught with confusion and anxiety, pleaded, Why are you using such harsh words? If I had known about your success as a lawyer. With a quiet yet firm attitude, I responded, Why should I need to inform someone who has never contacted me about my profession? In fact, I was planning to end our relationship after this wedding, but now, having witnessed your unfortunate end, I'm somewhat satisfied. You must be disappointed that your engagement to a doctor has been called off. Well, you'd better work hard to find your next prospect. With these words, I left the venue with dignity. From afar, I could hear the critical voices of Jessica and our parents from the guests. Everything proceeded as expected, and Jessica's marriage was no more. Our parents, who had thought a secure future was assured through Jessica marrying a doctor, expressed their anger towards her for the first time. Due to the commotion, Jessica, always pampered, couldn't withstand their anger and sought salvation with a broken heart. But I ignored her pleas without any sympathy. I never answered the phone despite repeated attempts, and I cut off all methods of contact with the family. I heard that Jessica had quit her job, now without employment, estranged from our parents, and spending her days shut in at home. As for me, I am maintaining a very satisfying state in both my work and private life, leading a peaceful existence, without any significant problems. Although the bond with my family hasn't been smooth sailing, I am fortunate to be blessed with a great deal of support from people in my professional life and day-to-day existence. This blessed environment isn't due to chance, but the result of long-term self-investment and persistent effort. There were days when I faced harsh trials, but it is because I overcame each one that I am where I am today. Reflecting on my past struggles and recognizing their value, I now hope to continue living a fulfilling life at my own pace, setting realistic goals while keeping stress to a minimum.